Okay, so all I'm saying is that I had big plans for this week. Massive plans. Videos every day, streams every day, Coach Jimmy's every day on Instagram. But then the motherfucking power went out. So it looked like this. Yeah. It looked like this, except minus the camera working and the lightning bolt behind me and everything that I need to make internet, including this episode of previews and predictions. And we're gonna start with Chelsea versus Manchester United because it's the rebound game for both of these clubs after they both got embarrassed recently, though we could argue that one got more embarrassed than the other. In fact, Chelsea got such a beatdown by Manchester City, I feel like their tail is so far between their legs, it's come out the other side and is tickling their balls. Is that visual too much for everybody? I don't care. But maybe it hasn't. Maybe the players of Chelsea can't be bothered with a little ball tickling anymore because they're immune to it. You know, like when you say you're not ticklish and then you can prove it? But then what have you become? I'll tell you, someone that no one wants to hang out with anymore because you're no fun. You're part of the no fun police. Pull over, we're not having any fun in here. No more smiles for anybody. Which is kind of how I feel about Chelsea fans right now. They just seem so bitter at the moment, which is kind of how I used to feel about Manchester United fans up until about 5 or 6 weeks ago when Ole Gunnar Solskjaer took charge. However, with their deserved 2-0 loss to the undermanned and understaffed without Neymar and Cavani PSG at Old Trafford, the honeymoon is officially over for Ole, so I'm very interested to see how he responds to the criticism after suffering his first loss in charge. Does he make any adjustments now that PSG has showed the whole world how you slow United down, which is by man-marking Paul Pogba, which Marquinhos, by the way, did to great effect? And if so, and if Maurizio Sarri was paying attention, and I'm sure that he was, how is Ole gonna figure out a way to get N'Golo Kante to pay attention to anybody else besides Paul Pogba so that Pogba has a space and time to do what he wants? And by the way, that is gonna be a great matchup and probably the most key matchup in the whole game, the two French teammates, Kante versus Pogba, battling it out for midfield supremacy. Supremacy. How do you say it? Does both of them work? Supremacy, supremacy. The born supremacy. The born supremacy. I think it's supremacy.
Wow.
Anyway, taking the big loss to City into consideration and their trip to Sweden for the Europa League on Thursday, which was yesterday, and the fact that Manchester United played on Tuesday, but they did it at home, and they have 2 extra days now to nurse injuries for some of their key players and to get over their loss to PSG and to make adjustments accordingly. And the fact that Chelsea's players just look a little bit more frustrated than United's at the moment, which is not all on Sarri, by the way. I feel like the players need to take some responsibility because, yes, even though Sarri picks the formation and he picks what players play, it doesn't take away from the fact that the players who are on the field need to be held accountable for the decisions they make and for their willingness to work on both sides of the ball. And I don't think they're doing very well in either one of those departments. So I'm gonna say that United's gonna pull this one out 2-1. And then we're heading to Serie A for Atalanta versus AC Milan, which is the 5th best team versus the 4th best team in the battle for that last Champions League spot in Italy. Also, fun fact for you, these two teams have not lost in the league in their last 5, so they should both be coming in with a ton of confidence, which is kind of like their 2 top strikers. I'm talking about Duvan Zapata from Atalanta, who scored 15 goals in his last 10 games, and my January transfer window MVP, Krzysztof Piątek, who since moving from Genoa to Milan has scored 4 goals in 4 games to become an instant fan favorite. Also, fun fact alert, part 2, Atalanta have scored 50 goals in the league this season, which makes them the highest scoring team in Serie A. Yes, even higher than Juve, but they've given up 31 goals, which even though that gives them a plus 19 goal difference if you're doing the math at home, that makes them one of the worst defenses in the league, which means with regard to Milan, even though I feel like they need a bigger, more experienced manager to take that next step, and I say this with all due respect to Gennaro Gattuso, I think they should be able to get a result in this game, largely in part because of Piontek's presence up top. So in summation, I think this is going to be a high-scoring affair, which means you know what's coming. I'm going to say 2-2. And now let's head to France for Saint-Étienne versus PSG because Neymar and Cavani, who? PSG showed their depth and the quality of their depth and some tactical brilliance by their manager Thomas Tuchel in their fine 2-0 win at Old Trafford in the Champions League. However, they're facing a Saint-Étienne team away from home that's having a pretty good season themselves. They're currently in 4th position despite the fact that they have some bad form as of late, losing 3 out of their last 5 games. So it'll be interesting to see how they play in this one against PSG, who beat them earlier this season in Paris 4-0. Also, because we're quite familiar with most of PSG's players, let's focus on someone from Saint-Étienne instead, and it's gonna be Wabi Kazri, because the former Sunderland man has 12 league goals, which puts him in 5th in the scoring charts in Ligue 1. But he hasn't scored in his last 4 games, and this was after he'd scored in 6 straight games prior to that. And PSG has to know that, right? Where if he plays well, then Saint-Étienne plays well, and if he doesn't, then Saint-Étienne usually loses. And because PSG has to know that, and they have some terrific players to man-mark him out of the game, I'm going to go with PSG to win this 2-0. And now let's go to Germany for Eintracht Frankfurt versus Borussia Mönchengladbach. And yes, I know you want me to talk about Borussia Dortmund and the fact that they conceded 3 goals in each of their last 3 games and are now winless in their last 4, and they must be feeling the pressure at the top. Or Bayern Munich, who are quietly working their way up the table and are now only 5 points off the top. But I'm not, because I assume we're going to be talking about both of those clubs a lot over the next few months. So instead, I want to focus on Gladbach, who are currently 3rd in the table, have the 2nd best defense in all of the Bundesliga, and are currently looking to wrong some rights after they suffered their first home league loss of the season to Hertha Berlin 3-0. Though I'm not sure they're going to get any sympathy from Frankfurt, who boasts the highest scoring tandem in all of the Bundesliga, Luka Jovic, who leads the league with 14 goals, and Sebastian Haller, who has 11. But they did just play in Ukraine yesterday in the Europa League while Gladbach got to rest, and Gladbach have won their last 2 games away from home while Frankfurt have drawn their last 3 in all competitions. So I'm gonna say 2-2 again. And now let's head to Portugal for Sporting Clube de Portugal versus Braga. But for the first time in a very long time, or ever, I'm not gonna talk about one of the top 3 clubs in this country, because instead I'm gonna talk about Braga. They're currently in 3rd place, 2 points off the top behind Porto, and 1 point behind 2nd place Benfica, and they boast the highest scoring player in the league in Diego Sousa, so they're having a terrific season. However, Braga does have a tendency to make it seem like they're gonna do something special during a season only to fall short. So maybe consider them the Spurs of Portugal, but with a stadium of their own. So my prediction, you ask? Well, given the fact that Sporting have 2 very good strikers on their team as well, and Bastos and Bruno Fernandes, who have scored a bunch of goals in the league so far this season, and the fact that Sporting are hosting this game, I just want to give them the advantage. But they did just lose to Villarreal in the Europa League yesterday, so that works against them. You have to think it does a smidge. And then Braga have won 4 straight league games, and they're going to want revenge after Sporting beat them in the League Cup final not too long ago in penalties. So I like Braga in this one. I'm going to say 2-1 to Braga. And here's some other games I'll be keeping my eyes on this weekend. Oh yeah, suckers. Like Pumas versus Club America, because this is a big derby in Mexico, the Clásico Capitalino, because Pumas are a team of the people, of the students, of the intellectuals, whereas Club America is the team supported by the wealthy establishment. In the last significant meeting between both of these clubs, the reigning champions America absolutely crushed Pumas 7-2 over 2 legs in the Liga MX semifinals. So this is a revenge match for Pumas of the highest order, and a way for them to get this season on track, because they're currently in 15th. So keep an eye out for this game. And then I'll be spying on Ajax versus NAC Breda, because Ajax have scored 72 league goals in 21 games this season. That's right, 72, which is an average of 3.4 league goals a season. That's a number that even Pep Guardiola could be proud of. But they've lost 3 out of their last 4 games in all competitions, including the 2 they played this past week. So it'll be very interesting to see how they perform against the worst team in the Eredivisie, especially since they need to win every single game from here on out for a chance to win the league, because the gap between them and PSV at the top is 6 points. And then finally, I'll be keeping tabs on Celta Vigo versus Levante, because we're always talking about the Madrid clubs and Barcelona and blah, blah, blah. But the real excitement in La Liga this season could be at the bottom of the table, since Celta Vigo, who are arguably one of the most entertaining sides in Spain these past few seasons, are in a relegation fight, as is Levante. So whoever gets these 3 points, well, it could prove vital to their safety and not getting relegated. So all right, that is it. That is all I got except for this. Predict the right score for Chelsea versus Manchester United. And if you get it right, you'll be entered to win some Warm Baller stickers, including this one of the new logo, which hasn't been released to the public just yet. Check it out once it focuses. It's gonna do it. It's gonna get off my face, focus on the sticker, in my weird looking hand. There it is. What a thing of beauty that is. So good luck. I wish you the very best. Have a good or bad weekend. And if you're feeling up to it, come join me on Twitch at twitch.tv/Jimmy Conrad. And we can watch some games together this weekend. Yeah, it'll be a lot of fun. Later.